After hearing about how David defeated the giant Goliath, King Saul was furious. He was not because Goliath had been killed, but because someone had taken the glory that was rightfully his. You see, the Israelites were afraid of Goliath, and so it was up to their king to come up with a way to stop him. And what better way than having the king's son fight him? But David was never supposed to take up the challenge. So why did he do it? And most importantly, what happened to Goliath's body after his death? Join us today in this channel as we look at the untold truth about Goliath. What happened to his body after he was defeated by David? Saul wanted David dead. When David came to King Saul for the first time, the young man had impressed the king so much that Saul took him in, made him one of his armor-bearers, and gave him a place in his court. Things seemed to be going well for David. He had found favor with the king. But then Goliath showed up, and everything changed. Although everyone thought it was a great idea for David to go fight Goliath, no one expected him to win. And when he did, it was clear that the people favored him over Saul. This enraged the king, who saw this as a chance to prove himself as the champion of Israel. But now all the attention was on David. And as if that wasn't enough, David refused to accept the giant's head. For from the soldiers he told them, "Whose glory is this that you have brought me? For there is either a blessing or an evil in Israel. So I desire to fear the Lord God, that he may bless me instead." Then he asked them to throw the giant's head into the valley where they found the water. He told them to carry the spear and the javelin too. And then he left to go see the men of Judah. This enraged Saul even more, because he felt that David had robbed him of his glory. In fact, Saul tried to kill David several times after that. Another time, Saul called David to braid his armor. And when David finished, Saul tried to pin him against a wall with his spear. But once again, David avoided the attack. Realizing that Saul wanted him dead, David fled, becoming a fugitive in his own country. We all know that Saul died after falling on his own sword during battle. But many people wonder what happened to his body after that. According to 2 Samuel chapter 21:14, it says, "And when the men of Jabesh-Gilead came to Saul, they found Saul hanging in the fortress and his armorer with him. And when they cut him down and brought him to Jabesh, the people buried him there in the tomb of Kish, his father." After being rejected by God, Saul turned to practicing witchcraft in order to find a way to get back at both David and God. He sought help from a woman who was known to practice sorcery, and he asked her to summon a spirit for him to speak through. But when the spirit appeared, it spoke about how Saul would die in battle. Enraged, Saul drew his sword and tried to kill the woman. And this is when he realized that God had abandoned him. With that realization, all hope left him, and he fell on his own sword, ending his life. But what about Goliath? His body was a disgrace to the Israelites while he lived among them, and they didn't want it polluting their land after his death. This is why David requested that only his body be brought to him after his death. The story goes like this. The Israelites had gathered in one place, while the Philistines were camped around them, ready to do battle. Suddenly, Goliath emerged from the Philistine ranks. calling out to the Israelites to send someone to fight him. As usual, the Israelites were scared, so they asked King David for help. Even though he had already proven himself capable of killing the giant, David refused to go. He said, "If he comes any closer to me, then I will kill him with the sword. If he comes in now, however, and I strike him with the spear, the same spear that wounded him, there will be trouble." His brothers heard him say this and thought that he was trying to be a hero. They said, "Just go and fight this Philistine. Why should he die a fool?" Hearing this, David went to the battlefield. When Goliath approached, David was ready. He aimed carefully and struck the giant in the forehead with a stone. Goliath fell to the ground. And when the giant fell, David ran toward him and pulled the sword from its sheath and cut off his head with it. The soldiers rushed in after seeing their champion fall. They killed all the Philistines and recovered Saul's armor, which had fallen to the ground. But even though he had defeated the giant, David's brothers were still mad at him. They said, "What are you doing? Come on, let's get out of here." But David answered, "They don't want us to escape. They want us dead. They only care about themselves. If they won, I would be honored. And if I won, they would be embarrassed. That's all they care about. But I don't care about my honor or theirs. Let's go home." And that's exactly what they did. They returned home without Goliath's head. The next day, when the Philistines noticed that they couldn't find Goliath's body, they searched until they found it. They picked up his remains and took them back to Gath, where they buried him. As for David, he continued fighting alongside King Saul until the king's death. After that, David became the king of Israel. He reigned over Israel for 40 years. His kingdom reached from the river Nile in Egypt to the Euphrates River in Mesopotamia. During his reign, Israel became the most powerful nation in the world. His reign was so prosperous that it has become a model of success for many generations. It is said that he kept the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem in a tent that was made especially for it. However, it is believed that the Ark of the Covenant was stolen by the Babylonians, who melted it down for its gold. But that's just a theory. There is no proof that the Ark was destroyed. Some people believe it can still be found hidden somewhere in Ethiopia. When David became king, he knew that the Israelites were still angry at him because he had killed Goliath. At that time, the law of Moses stated that whoever killed a person must be put to death. And David had killed many people during his battles, so he was afraid that they would want him dead. He also knew that he could never build a house for God because he had killed many people and shed a lot of blood. Therefore, he offered to buy materials for the construction of the temple from the treasury. He also said that he would give the gold he took from the Midianites as a ransom for the Israelites. But God said to him, "You are not allowed to build a house for me because you have shed too much blood and have killed many people. You cannot build a house for me, but your son will build." It is important to note that even though David committed many great acts, he also made a lot of mistakes. He committed adultery with Bathsheba, for example, and then had her husband Uriah killed. For this, God punished him severely. He said to David, I will raise up evil against you, and I will punish you with 7 years of famine. And after that, your son will rise up against you, and will lie with your wife before my face. Thus I will bring calamity on your house, and your own descendants will be the ones to make trouble." Although David repented of his actions, God still carried out his punishment. His son Absalom rebelled against him, and after Absalom's death, Israel suffered 7 years of famine. Even though David sinned against God, he never stopped believing in him. In Psalm 51 he wrote, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. Remove my transgressions according to your abundant mercy. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin, for I know my faults, and my sin is always before me." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe.